Hello, my friends. We're going to be starting in 5 minutes. Link is now posted. Hopefully, we'll see you in 5. We're going to be talking about 1 Samuel chapter 17, also known as David and Goliath. And I think you're going to be happy with the direction we're going to go in. Might go in a direction that you are not expecting. So we'll see you guys in 5 minutes. it appears that Cassandra was watching the time run out and left as soon as it was down to the wire. She wanted to make a dramatic entrance. So she was like, okay, the lighting's good. I'm happy with this. Let me leave and come back. Let me do my entrance again. I didn't know if you were going to be here. You made a joke about not coming.
I never made a joke about not coming. I already saw you once, so in my mind it was done. I had nothing else to do.
Yeah, this week Cassandra helped me out with what will be the next funny news video. So watch out for that one.
We'll see.
Cassandra. Yeah, it's going to be good. It's going to be so good. So solid. Did you have anything else of interest floating through your mind since we last spoke?
No, I don't think so.
That's fine.
It's like a pop quiz. You ask me these questions, I have no idea.
You know what I actually like? I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but I'm going to make passing mention of it. I actually really like that this stream is not interested at all in anyone's personal lives. It's just like we're talking about the Bible. All this other stuff happens in the corner. We're not talking about it, guys. Not talking about it at all. We're
so I'm here every week.
Yeah, we're here to do Bible study. That's it. We just move on, right? I'm part of a theater group, and it's interesting because actors date each other and stuff, and every now and then there's obviously drama. They're very artistic personalities, but the communities that are the best are actually the ones that are just there for the purpose of creating a play. We're here for the theater. We're to do that. We don't care what you guys did. We don't care. We're moving on. We're not taking sides. We're just casting whoever's going to be best for this show. Yeah, there's some sort of a lesson in there. Okay. We're going to talk about 1 Samuel 17. Pulling it up. Ba-ba. Added to the stage. I was just speaking with Tayo, so maybe he will show up. I don't know. Maybe. I don't actually have his contact, so he was just on Discord somewhere. So yeah. We'll see who shows up. But
address.
Oh. This is like every now and then I am very much a boomer. I think you realize that. Okay, give me 1 second. Okay, Cassandra, would you do us the favor of reading?
Okay. Now the Philistines gathered their armies for battle, and they were gathered at Soko, which belongs to Judah, and encamped between Soko and Azekah and Ephes Damim. And Saul and the men of Israel were gathered and encamped in the valley of Elah, and drew up in line of battle against the Philistines. And the Philistines stood on the mountain on the one side, and Israel stood on the mountain on the other side, with a valley between them. And there came out of the camp of the Philistines a champion named Goliath of Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span. He had a helmet of bronze on his head, and he was armed with a coat of mail.
Okay, let's pause. Let's pause 1 moment. Tayo, hello, sir. So right out the gate, you know, people make mention of this, is in the Septuagint and the Dead Sea Scrolls and Josephus, it says 4 cubits. So this is a thing that people don't know how to deal with, is if the Masoretic text, we have older documents than the Masoretic text, which is the form of Hebrew, which give a different measurement. Which measurement do we go by? Because this says, the Masoretic text says 6 cubits, but it's a different amount in some of the older documents we have. Mm-hmm. So depending on how you interpret it, he's like, I think it's either he's 7 feet tall or he's like 11 feet tall, which is a bit of a difference.
Yeah, that's two men on top of each other, basically. Like,
yes, yeah, that's a good way of thinking about it. Terrifying, isn't it? It doesn't matter, even if he's just 7 feet tall. I don't know if you've ever seen someone who's 7. Is it 7 or 9? Either way, it's an odd number and it's very tall.
yeah.
How absolutely intimidating that would be. Like, that's the comparison between a human and a hobbit, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it feels like that. I remember looking at that picture of his name just flew out of my head. It was Jet Li and that basketball player.
Oh.
His name just flew out of my head as soon as I thought of the story. But I just remember pictures of them standing next to each other, and it is like so stark. I mean, Jet Li's kind of a small guy, but he's still like normal range. And then you see he's next to a basketball player, NBA player, and it's absolutely crazy.
It's like
2.5 of him.
It's impossible to conceive of it. Like when you're trying to picture it in your head, I don't know if you had this experience. The first time I saw it, I was just like, we live in a fantastical world. Like, let me share this image. This is a white dude with pygmies. Okay. Like, how is this not hobbits? Right? Like, this looks fantastical to me that there are full-grown adults that are coming up to the middle of this guy.
Yeah, they child-sized.
Yeah, it's
crazy.
Imagine these guys getting into a fight. Who's your money on? Right?
Well, I guess like you said before, like you're tall, you have a reach, you can just cover way more ground, you have a longer stride. Like everything just seems, just way more intimidating.
Jan God wants to remind us that anthropology is racist, by the way. Thank you. I know. Yeah. So we're gonna go back to what we're into the bit. But there's some other stuff that I don't. If you don't know the Hebrew, you might be surprised at. Let me switch over again back to the Hebrew. So the word bronze in Hebrew sounds like the word snake. That might seem very strange to people, but the word sounds like snake. So much so that the bronze serpent has a Hebrew name, and Hebrew scholars debate if it's a reference, if the name of the bronze serpent is a reference to it being bronze or if it's a reference to it being a snake. Which one is it?
Right.
Like here, even etymology. Nahashtan, that's the name, is a pun off either the Hebrew word for snake or brass, and thus they mean the great serpent or the great brass. Like, so even something like Wikipedia is addressing that.
That's interesting. I wonder if it's because, like, in some places, like the snakes tend to be colored like their environment.
Yeah,
so they'll have like a brown color.
And it can be a glittering too, where when you look at a snake, they sometimes look reflective.
Yeah, their skin.
That's right. And I think that there's some business. Shalom. I really want Hezi's opinion on this because I'm going to go into some weird directions with the Hebrew. So I don't care. I'm going to do it, and I need the Jews to keep me honest. So he had a helmet of bronze. You'll remember there were 3 stories of Saul becoming king. And the third story about him becoming king involved him fighting a dude named Snake. Right? His name was just Nahash, which is just the word for snake. So this is the third story of how David becomes king. And in the third story behind how David becomes king, there's Goliath is the champion. He's remarkably tall, which might mean he's literally the seed of the serpent. We talked about that before, about Nephilim and all that business. He had a helmet, and that word sounds like snake. So he's got a snake head. And this is the other bit. He had a coat of mail. It's not the word for male. The word literally is is scales.
Okay.
It could be used to refer to the scales of a fish. What other animal has scales? Like,
right. Yeah. So he's like in a big snake costume in one way of thinking about it.
That's exactly right. Goliath shows up in a snake costume. Like, look at that armor. Imagine. And then this material is all made out of a word that sounds like the word for snake. I'm very interested in this, but Hezi, you're going to have to show up to inform us about it. But yeah, so this kind of armor, scaled armor, if you just like read about it, it was invented in the Middle East. Okay. So this is not out of place, but I want you to think about that, because every time it is compared to bronze or brass, it is going to be using a word which sounds like the word for snake. Okay. So start from verse 5, please. Okay. Or have you ever heard this interpretation before, by the way?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Is it fun? Do you like it?
Yeah, well, I like learning about the translations and stuff and the etymology of the words, since I don't know Hebrew. So this is like a new dimension for me.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
He had a helmet of bronze on his head, and he was armed with a coat of mail. And the weight of the coat was 5,000 shekels of bronze. And he had bronze armor on his legs, and a javelin of bronze slung between his shoulders.
Snake. Right? Like, even the weight of it, it's very rare that they give the weight in, like, there's other materials that will oftentimes be used, but that it's specifically going bronze. Sorry, keep going.
The shaft of his spear was like a weaver's beam, and his spear's head weighed 600 shekels of iron, and his shield bearer went before him. He stood and shouted to the ranks of Israel, "Why have you come out to draw up for battle? Am I not a Philistine? And are you not servants of Saul? Choose a man for yourselves and let him come down to me. If he is able to fight with me and kill me, then we will be your servants. But if I prevail against him and kill him, then you shall be our servants and serve us."
Great job. Okay, some stuff in there. This is very much debated, what a weaver's beam, what does that mean? Some people have tried to draw it up and stuff. I think, this is just me, that they sometimes made, like, people were weaving things that became these massive tents and stuff like that. So I think it's referring to how big it is. Other people, like, will wrap a cord around the spear, thinking that somehow helped it to spin, like have a, what is that called? This sort of a what is the word?
Like
spiral. Spiral. That'll help it spiral. I don't think that's what it. I don't think that's been properly demonstrated. I think.
I was thinking, because sometimes when people like make bracelets or weave or crochet, they'll have like a structure that you do it on, like when you loom. I was thinking of maybe like a beam that they were used to carry like the heavy stuff over while they made it. You know.
Crazy theory is that he's the descendant of Samson.
Oh,
fascinating. I mean, it makes sense. We're talking about huge dudes, incredibly powerful. Okay. What do we know about Saul physically? We know two things about him physically.
Yeah. Well, he was the tallest man in all of Israel.
That's right. Head taller than everyone.
Yeah. And then what else did it say about that? He was handsome?
Yeah, good looking.
Okay.
Good looking, and
Very
also tall. So it's kind of hinted at that the person who should fight Goliath should be Saul.
Right. He's the king.
Yeah. So it's like you bring out the best person, and whoever wins becomes servants and will serve us. I noted before that the Philistines have a connection with Egypt, so you can almost imagine this is like you're going to be our slaves. We're gonna do something that's gonna make it so that we're back to where we started. I think that's all I have to say about that. But it's a great little competition. Why must we go to war? Pick one person. Okay, the Ramban said he is 9'7". It's a good height.
Yeah, that's crazy height.
It's like a place where someone may have actually seen something like that is of all places, the big purple guy from the Marvels universe. What is his name? The guy who wears the big glove. Infinity War.
Oh, I almost said Thor. No, I know who you're talking about though.
Yeah, is if you look at him standing across from someone like Thor, that's the height difference that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Thanos,
yeah. It's interesting because it's not like a common occurrence. So this isn't like something that just pops up every once in a while, like at irregular intervals.
No, yeah, there's something special happening here.
Yeah. That's curious because I immediately think about all the other stories of like giants that you get in other places.
Yeah.
Too.
And they're usually the spawn of gods, of divine beings of some kind.
Right, yeah.
And we'll see, because the last story of we'll get there. Just start from 10 and keep going.
And the Philistines said, I defy the ranks of Israel this day. Give me a man that we may fight together. When Saul and all Israel heard these words of the Philistines, they were dismayed and greatly afraid. Now David was the son of an Ephrathite of Bethlehem in Judah named Jesse, who had 8 sons. In the days of Saul, the man was already old and advanced in years. The 3 oldest sons of Jesse had followed Saul to the battle, and the names of his 3 sons who went to the battle were Eliab, the firstborn, and next to him Abinadab, and the third Shammah. David was the youngest. The 3 eldest followed Saul. But David went back and forth from Saul to feed his father's sheep at Bethlehem. For 40 days the Philistines came forward and took his stand morning and evening.
Okay, so one of the things to note is the number 40 in biblical, like people are like, oh, 40 is an important number. That's true, but it's important that you remember how it's important. It's usually a period of testing or trial or difficulty. So 40 days of rain, 40 years in the wilderness. 40 is used oftentimes as a last opportunity. There's a difficulty. There's a whole bunch of stuff all connected with that. David is we talked about this before. He's the smallest, is also how he's described. He's going back and forth. He's not even a man of war. He's just showing up to feed people.
Yeah, it said he went back and forth from Saul to feed his father's sheep. So I'm guessing, because we were talking earlier about the chronology last week, but this makes it seem like maybe he's already met Saul, and he's already like maybe being like they know each other already, and he's playing music for him at this point.
It's unclear. It's unclear, and you'll see why it's unclear as we continue on. Because you're right. It says Saul instead of the army. It might mean the army, like where the army is, but you'll see it sounds like he's introduced a second time.
Right.
Go ahead. 17.
And Jesse said to David his son, "Take for your brothers an ephah of this parched grain and these 10 loaves, and carry them quickly to the camp to your brothers. Also take these 10 cheeses to the commander of their 1,000. See if your brothers are well, and bring some token from them." Now Saul and they and all the men of Israel were in the valley of Elah, fighting with the Philistines. And David rose early in the morning and left the sheep with a keeper, and took the provisions and went, as Jesse had commanded him. And he came to the encampment as the host was going out to the battle line, shouting the war cry.
Okay, pause. I need to do this before Chezi says it. This is a thing that happens repeatedly in the Hebrew Bible. Rose early in the morning. People rise early in the morning when they are committed to doing things. Okay, so when Abraham has to sacrifice Isaac, it says he gets up early in the morning. Whereas in other stories, you get like Lot in Sodom and Gomorrah, it says that he sleeps in the day that the city's going to be destroyed. It's like, dude, you slept in? It's the whole place is about to go up in flames. You slept in? And Balaam also, he wakes up, like people who are committed to their purpose and know that they're supposed to do something, and they are committed and good dudes. In the Hebrew Bible, they rise early, right? It's, I mean, you get the image, because that's still the case. Someone makes something a priority and they sleep until 2. You're like, that wasn't really a priority, was it?
Right, yeah. They're together. They have everything together.
That's right. And David, already, he's the keeper of the sheep. He's with the sheep. He's caring for them, but he's also caring for his brother, so he gets up early to take care of both. Good dude. Solid dude. They say he's a righteous dude. Okay, continue.
Now Saul and they and all the men of Israel were in the valley of Elah fighting the Philistines. And David rose early in the morning and left the sheep with the keeper, and took the provisions and went as Jesse had commanded him. And he came to the encampment as the host was going out to the battle line, shouting the war cry. And Israel and the Philistines drew up for battle, army against army. And David left the things in charge of the keeper of the baggage, and ran to the ranks, and went and greeted his brothers. As he talked with them, behold, the champion, the Philistine of Gath, Goliath by name, came up out of the ranks of the Philistines, and spoke the same words as before, and David heard him.
Keep going.
And all the men of Israel, when they saw the man, fled from him, and were much afraid. And the men of Israel said, "Have you seen this man who has come up? Surely he has come up to defy Israel. And the king will enrich the man who kills him with great riches, and will give him his daughter, and make his father's house free in Israel." And David said to the man who stood by him, "What shall be done for the man who kills this Philistine, and takes away the reproach from Israel? For who is this uncircumcised Philistine, that he should defy the armies of the living God?" And the people answered him in the same way, "So shall it be done to the man who kills him."
Okay, good. Okay. Taking away the reproach. There's that word for shame again. You will remember that there's shame as a byproduct of the fall. There is also, in the story of the third story of how Saul becomes king, when he hears that this guy is going to gouge out the eyes, Saul goes to take away their shame, because he's about to do this shameful thing. So in both stories, the culmination of what makes these guys Messiah, Christ, that's the word, Mashiach, that makes them the anointed one, is battling the serpent and undoing the shame. It's in both of the culminating stories of these guys, of where the rubber, and in both the stories, it's where the rubber meets the road. Saul's made king, but then he actually does something in battle which shows his ability. So it's not just spiritual. It's not just that he's been chosen. That's the first. He actually shows it in battle against the serpent, and here it is again, against the serpent, against the one who brings shame. That's all I have to say about that. Okay. Look, I'm supported by Hezi, at least in what I said about early in the morning. As for the snake idea, I think it's very good, and I'm not aware of it. Well, Cassandra, how is he going to? How does the Messiah kill the snake?
Steps on his head.
Crushes his head. What's about to happen to Goliath?
Yeah, he gets decapitated.
That's right. After his head is crushed, his head will be cut off.
Yeah, it's kind of make me thinking of the other things, maybe because it kept saying bronze over and over. Because I remember watching whatever those movies were where they had like the animated claymation monsters of it's a girl with the snake head, you know?
Oh, Medusa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kept thinking of that too, because she gets her head cut off, I think.
Yeah.
At the end. Or no, does she just turn into a statue?
I can't remember.
I feel like I remember a picture of her head being like held up. But maybe I'm thinking of something else.
Yeah. These things are familiar enough to me. Okay, let's continue on because we're gonna get to the good head crushing bit.
Okay. Now Eliab, his eldest brother, heard when he spoke to the men, and Eliab's anger was kindled against David. And he said, "Why have you come down? And with whom have you left those few sheep in the wilderness? I know your presumption and the evil of your heart, for you have come down to see the battle." And David said, "What have I done now? Was it not but a word?" And he turned away from him toward another and spoke in the same way, and the people answered him again as before. So when the words that David spoke were heard, they repeated them before Saul, and he sent for him. And David said to Saul, "Let no man's heart fail because of him. Your servant will go and fight with this Philistine." And Saul said to David, "You are not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for you are but a youth, and he has been a man of war from his youth." But David said to Saul, "Your servant used to keep sheep for his father, and when there came a lion or a bear and took a lamb from the flock, I went after him and struck him and delivered it out of his mouth. And if he arose against me, I caught him by his beard and struck him and killed him."
Okay, pause 1 second. Okay, this is a great little bit. David, so much personality. So I think this might even be part of what Hezi was referring to. He first interacts with his brother, and his brother doesn't like him. His brother gives him grief.
Tension, yeah.
It's a weird kind of interaction. It's like, I thought David's a good dude. Then Saul hears about it, and David refers to himself as your servant. Your servant, right?
Right.
This is David repeatedly will identify as the servant of Saul. Trying to help you out, buddy.
Right. Yeah, it's funny because his brother is saying that David's evil. Your heart is evil. You just want to come down and see the fight. It was kind of funny. And then David doesn't seem to even be that bothered by it.
No. Well, it's so interesting because David is referred to as a man after God's own heart. So he's the man after God's own heart. Hello, Mikhail.
Hello.
Hi. So he's the man after God's own heart, and his brother is accusing him of having a bad heart. And Saul takes a look at David and says, "You're not going to be able to do this." And David says, "God, So
a wolf or a hyena."
Very interesting. Yeah. But he says, God has already protected me in the past. He'll do it again.
Right.
Nothing I haven't been through before, right? And you have These animals are the animals that a warrior would compare themselves with. And he would grab him by the beard. So Michael has to look out. That's what Michael has to be worried about. Someone grabbing him by the beard, striking him.
Yeah, it's
Michael.
funny 'cause go ahead.
No, go. You go. You go.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, David, because I guess Saul was like this in the beginning, where his reaction was definitely like, "Oh, we'll take care of this. This is unacceptable, and we'll do something."
Yeah,
So
I must immediately.
Yeah, he's very confident, and then I guess maybe to other people, it might almost seem reckless. It's like there might be consequences to what you're doing, but he's fine with that. He's okay with it. He trusts in God.
Yeah.
He's, I guess, courageous. Like a lot of these heroes in the Bible, they seem like that. Like they're not worrying incessantly about things.
Not ones to sleep in.
Yeah.
Rise early. Michael, did you have anything? I don't know if you have already been listening to us.
No, I was talking to Luke because I blew up his stream.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that. We won't be talking about that here, but yeah, I saw that. So the big thing that I was hitting on is that the way that Goliath is described, he's wearing, the word for bronze sounds like snake. It is also scaled armor, sounds like snake. And he has brought shame, and the Messiah is the one who's about to do battle with him and about to crush his head. So
sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
Hey, wait. Messiah and not the Messiah's mother is going to crush his head?
No, the Messiah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Michael. I know exactly the reference. Cassandra, how about you continue with your servant? Top of the
okay.
36.
Your servant has struck down both lions and bears or hyenas, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be like one of them, for he has defied the armies of the living God. And David said, "The Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear will deliver me from the hand of the Philistine." And Saul said to David, "Go, and the Lord be with you."
Man, okay. Saul is actually good in this chapter. He's not courageous in that he is not doing it himself, but he is courageous in that he does allow David to do this, right? It's Barak. We talked about this before. When Barak is going, there's an element where he's a coward because he says to Deborah, if you go with me, I'll go. If you won't go with me, I won't go. But he still goes. He says, okay, the Hashem be with you. The Lord be with you, right? God is with this person. All right. We'll see what happens. It's going to happen. So it's complicated because is Saul being courageous in allowing David to do this?
I mean, what are the risks? If David goes out there and fails, then they all become servants to the Philistines.
That's right.
And maybe it's embarrassing because they sent out the smallest guy that they got. I don't know.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Okay, yeah. Let's continue because the parallels with Genesis 3 don't stop at what I've been saying before. Continue.
Then Saul clothed David with his armor. He put a helmet of bronze on his head and clothed him with a coat of mail. And David strapped his sword over his armor. And he tried in vain to go, for he had not tested them. Then David said to Saul, "I cannot go with these, for I have not tested them." So David put them off. Then he took his staff in his hand and chose 5 smooth stones from the brook and put them in his shepherd's pouch. His sling was in his hand, and he approached the Philistine.
Good stuff.
He takes off the snake.
That's right. Takes off the snake. He also is removing his garments. right? The re-entering, reapproaching, that he's going in. I mean, it's not naked, but you kind of get this image of the taking off the coverings, taking off the layers, approaching, and just as you said, that it's snake. It's also has those descriptions, and in some rabbinic material, the skin that Adam puts on is the original body of the serpent. That it's a weird thing. It's just like, okay, they put on like that. That's what the serpent looks like initially, is almost like looks like a person.
Right.
Which is also like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah. Dawn is asking, is there a message in here that if the least likely looking guy wins, it shows the hand of God in the victory? Absolutely. We saw that in Judges, right? There's a story where God speaks to Gideon and says, too many people. If you win with that many people, you'll think it was you. There's a rabbinic thing, and I know Hezi believes it, that they think that him going with his shepherd's staff is meant to look like to throw off Goliath. I have a different theory. It's a very simple theory. My uncle used to watch professional darts, and everything that was professional darts used to be in bars, obviously, right? It's where people play darts. And they switched it to TV. And when they had TV, like when they started filming the competitions, they weren't allowed to have beer being shown on ESPN for some reason. And one of the guys who was the best at throwing darts started failing, and he realized he had to hold a pint glass full of water in order to be as good as he normally was. Because this is every single time he did it with this glass in his hand. So to throw without the glass in his hand completely throws him off. So David used his shepherd's sling, his shepherd's staff, and his shepherd's bag. He goes in the way that he knows how to, like, that's what he's experienced with. He's not experienced in the armor. So he says, I can't do this. I have no experience with it. Anyway, that's my theory.
This one weird trick to be really good at slings.
That's right.
Okay. Honestly, when I see staff, I always immediately think of Moses. So I was like, oh, is this going in a different direction? But
no, that's a good question too.
But I like that theory. That makes sense.
And Goliath will make mention of his stick too, where he's walking up with the staff. He chooses 5 stones. I got nothing on that. I know there's a lot of different theories as to what the 5 represents, but I have no idea.
Okay. In the shepherd's pouch?
I don't know. Like, to me, it's just this is the stuff he has experience with.
He was about to say something really insightful. That's
too bad. Super insightful, but someone grabbed him by the beard and struck him so that the lamb fell out of his mouth.
Maybe what does the shepherd's pouch look like? Because I am envisioning like what do they call them? Like those fanny pack things that people put around their waist. like that. Does it look like that?
I don't know. Yeah, I really don't know. There's some people. There is a sling called a staff sling, and what you do for a staff sling. Maybe I'll find a YouTube video real quick, and share it. The staff sling. Some people are like, that's what he used. I don't think so. But I'll still show it because it's kind of cool looking.
Is that the one that goes really fast and just like bullet speeds?
There we are. Okay, gotta turn this off. All right. Let's see. share. Okay. So you got a stick, you got a rope to it. You can see the little pouch dangling. That's where you put your projectile.
Okay.
And it's got like a little hook that it undoes so that it can be thrown much further. So he flicks it. You can barely see it, but it goes very far. It goes exceptionally far. Yeah, so that's one of the theories. I don't buy it because I don't know if we have archaeological evidence. And I don't know what the sling or, yeah. I like the idea that it's just a little fanny pack.
Well, when it says pouch, I guess I just think of it being on the stomach. But then I guess if it's like a leather pouch, I don't know. You're saying something about Genesis earlier. I was like, okay, so he has like, you were saying the garment or something.
Right.
And he's going into battle against the snake.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see.
That's just like wild projections.
A thing I do want to note, though, is that the sling is a real weapon. It's not a fake weapon.
Mm-hmm.
It gets used all the way into the Roman period as well.
Right.
They would cast them out of lead, actually. Sometimes those casts of lead would include swear words and curses. So it'd just be like, it would just like, there'd be shit talking on this lead projectile that is then tossed at people. And we have them like sometimes quite literally where they're talking poop.
Right. Cursing
people. Yeah. And in Judges, we had a whole bunch of Benjaminites that were trained with a sling. He's got bad service. That's fine, Michael. It's also interesting to me because it's Benjaminites that use the sling the last time we see it used. So it's David using the weapons of Saul's tribe in this thing. I just want to make mention of it because sometimes people picture like a little slingshot but this is real. This is a real weapon.
All right.
Okay, let's continue starting at 41.
And the Philistine moved forward and came near to David with his shield bearer in front of him. And when the Philistine looked and saw David, he disdained him, for he was but a youth, ruddy and handsome in appearance. And the Philistine said to David, "Am I a dog that you come to me with sticks?" And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. The Philistine said to David, "Come to me, and I will give your flesh to the birds of the air and to the beasts of the fields." Then David said to the Philistine, "You come to me with a sword and with a spear and with a javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hand, and I will strike you down and cut off your head. And I will give the dead bodies of the host of the Philistines this day to the birds of the air and to the wild beasts of the earth, that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel, and that all this assembly may know that the Lord saves not with the sword and spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hand."
Perfect.
So.
Something all the way up here. And when the Philistines looked and saw David, he dismayed him, for he was but a youth. Adam, ruddy as Adam. So maybe I'm stretching it, but I need someone to challenge me on the way that I'm stretching it. Who is about to fight the snake? The one who looks like Adam. That's how you say. So the one who looks like the snake versus the one who looks like Adam. The one who's removing the layers is going in, who's going to take away the shame. That's how the battle is being structured. It's a fascinating picture because it's a great story even if you don't know this. It's dramatic. There's trash talk and all this stuff. It's great. But then you have this other level where it's not just a pissing contest. It's actually an undoing of the curse in Genesis 3. It's an undoing of that. And that's the role that the Messiah is doing. Yeah, and this goes back to what I think Don was saying as well. For the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hand. So David is entirely saying it is like the lesser winning is a sign that God is really working. Yoav, have you come to challenge me?
Do you hear me?
Yes, hear you great.
No, I didn't come to challenge you. Actually, I'm coming to support you.
Oh, wonderful.
It sets me thinking. I didn't think of the story this way, but it's, the case is extremely convincing. I'm always trying to get to the root of the word. I mean, how come you have two different concepts that that got the same word? I mean, I'm trying to figure out what was the process that caused this story to emerge.
Right.
And the first question I will ask on which word come first? I mean, which word entered the language first? And I would think that the snake will be a more basic word, because people in Africa will encounter snakes before they invented the bones.
Well, and the other word in Hebrew for snake, the saraf, also can give a notion of a glittering or much the same way what I was describing before. The like brass, the glittering appearance is also saraf in a different sense. So the seraphim could be snakes instead of burning ones, is how I think English will often translate it. Sorry, continue.
Well, I'm not convinced that the saraf is a snake. Could be, but there are, in any language, that there will be different types of snakes, and people walking in the desert will know many types of snakes. Some of them more dangerous than others. Of course, they will have different names to different kinds of snakes. But anyway, going back, I would guess that Nachash for a snake will be the more ancient word, because it's a more basic word in the language. And Nechoshet for copper or for bronze will be an acquired technology. And it's acquired technology. When you acquire technology, the word comes from that culture that invented it. Let's say that if perhaps the Egypt invented bronze, then the Hebrews will learn the art of using bronze from the Egyptians, and they will borrow the word from another language. So I would guess that the word for bronze will enter the language later, and they will sound the same, and then they sort of clash with each other. Now we're coming to the attitude of the people. When people were comparing those two words together and noticing how similar the sound, that would probably trigger some poetic sense in them, and they would start playing on that. And I would think, what sort of an association would they have with bronze? Will bronze be something that they like? Like if you have a lot of bronze implement in your kitchen, it is something positive. Or perhaps will it have negative connotations to the ancient Hebrews? Now the time is immediately after the collapse of the Bronze Age. There was a world order.
Right.
And there was an aristocracy that was based on the trade and manufacture and the use of bronze in warfare. And the Hebrews were the outcasts, that there were the nomads being subdued by the aristocracy of the bronze users. So I would gather that they will have a negative connotation with bronze. Bronze is something that the Gentiles are using. There's something that they're using to oppress us. We don't use bronze. We use the sling, or we use our short swords or stone tools or whatever we are using. Now, as for the use of the sling, not only that it was a common instrument of battle in those days, the whole profession of sling user in the army, the infantry, the Greek infantry, would split into two classes. There would be the heavy infantry, the one that will use the heavy bronze spears and the heavy shields, like Goliath, and there will be heavily armored, not so heavy, there will be armored somewhat, and there was the light infantry. The light infantry would use almost always the slings, and you're right. I mean, if they had the technology, they would use lead pellets. Depends which island you come. In some islands, they were expert in the manufacture of those lead pellets, and you can see it very well in battles up to 400 BC. Xenophon describes an army composed of those two classes of infantry. Because
I looked it up, and if you were very good with a sling, it seems impossible to me, but people could throw a sling, throw these lead things further than they could shoot an arrow in many cases. And that sounded impossible to me. But if you got the right shape of it with these lead ones, you can see why it would be actually, why it wouldn't go away, even as things like bow and arrow would be used, because you could actually shoot sooner, faster. And your ammo is everywhere. You're not spending hours upon hours making arrows. You just have them.
So the story to the ancients was not at all unbelievable. It was common scene in any battle that the light infantry will approach the enemy first, and they will shoot their sling and run away, and they will cause whatever casualties that they caused. And later there was the hand-to-hand combat with the heavy infantry. Right. So it was the common practice. This is how the battle used to happen. Having it one-on-one instead of army against army sounds to me like a very ancient practice. I mean, by the time the Greek had the Great War in 400 BC, 500 BC, you didn't have those one-to-one battles anymore, but there were stories about it all over with the story of Troy.
I don't, Yoav, if I have you here, I kind of want to show you something and ask your opinion on it. There's these seals that were discovered around the time of Isaiah, and this is ancient Hebrew that's written on them. But the symbol, so this is supposed to be, it's a crowned disc. People think that it's like the first one on the left. The crown disc on the left and on the right, there's snakes. And on all of these were in Israel, where you can see winged serpents. They look not too dissimilar to images in Egypt as well as winged serpents, as what they're semi-divine, like they're spirit beings, for lack of better term. This is what they look like. Some people have said if you take the sides of a snake, how it cobra puffs it, they just exaggerated that until it became wings. That might be where it came from. Do you have any opinion on this? I know I'm just throwing this at you.
Yes. First of all, Egypt was still there.
Right.
And whatever was happening in Egypt has an influence on the aristocracy in Israel. That's for sure. Now, I don't have to give you my opinion. I can give you the opinion of Jordan Peterson, because he has.
I would love it if you can do the voice.
No. He said that it is the trying to describe the worst and most fearsome predator.
Right. And
Because
the most unnatural, because it also
Yeah.
it looks so weird.
Yeah, but like if you even Jordan Peterson will go back to the time when we were ape. What sort of a predator would we be afraid of? We'll be afraid of snakes climbing up on the trees. We will be afraid of eagles snatching our young
Right, right.
from above. We will be afraid of fire. And if you combine all of them together, you get a dragon.
Right. You get this thing. You get
So this is your explanation according to Jordan Peterson.
right. Well, and it is interesting. I'll have to do a little more work on it. But there are words which in Hebrew, like the other word for snake, can be used, and the word can mean to participate in divination. It can mean snake. It sounds like the word for bronze. There's other words that sound like snake that also can mean burning. If you think of the feeling of being bitten by a cobra, right? That they would describe it as a burning. These could all go together.
Yeah. The connection to nowadays, if the root is used for guessing,
Right.
not for divination, but it will be used for guessing. It's a question: how do words come together? Is there a connection, or is just?
Well, I'm very glad that you hopped on, because if I was lying about Hebrew, you'd be the one to tell me.
No, you're not. You're not lying, but Hebrew is extremely ancient. The word for pottery, kad, will go back all the way to the invention of pottery.
Right.
So there's so many layers. I don't think I can hear now without any peel them all. But it is interesting. Also, I think we have to keep in mind that a lot of consonants got lost in the joined together. I think the language was much richer in consonants back when the Hebrews were in Africa. So I think some words just got merged together by the loss of phonetic distinction.
Yeah. That's very interesting. Very interesting. Okay, let's continue on in the text. Yoav, you of course are welcome to stay, or you can leave and come back when you have another thing that you want to talk to us about. But both are welcome. Both are very welcome. That's very good. Thank you. Cassandra, will you continue for us? 40. Yeah, and he did go. Okay, 48.
Okay. When the Philistine arose and came and drew near to meet David, David ran quickly toward the battle line to meet the Philistine. And David put his hand in his bag and took out a stone and slung it and struck the Philistine on his forehead. The stone sank into his forehead and he fell on his face to the ground.
I also, look, it is in his head. It's not just that it hits him. It's not like, because sometimes in the children's Bibles, they even show it bouncing off his forehead. It does not bounce off his forehead.
No, yeah.
And it's in there. It sank into his forehead. It's like a bullet shot, right? Like, okay.
Yeah.
So the head is crushed. Great. Continue.
Okay. So David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and with a stone, and struck the Philistine and killed him. There was no sword in the hand of David. Then David ran and stood over the Philistine and took his sword and drew it out of its sheath and killed him and cut off his head with it. When the Philistines saw that their champion was dead, they fled. And the men of Israel and Judah rose with a shout and pursued the Philistines as far as Gath and the gates of Ekron, so that the wounded Philistines fell on the way from Sha'araim as far as Gath and Ekron. And the people of Israel came back from chasing the Philistines, and they plundered their camp. And David took the head of the Philistine and brought it to Jerusalem, but he put his armor in his tent.
Okay, here we go. So it's not just that he strikes the head, he cuts it clean off. Yeah, Dom, this is a great. He killed him twice? Yeah. I'm going to kill you dead. Yeah, he killed him dead. So he killed him again. Jerusalem is not in their control. And Jerusalem will be called the city of David, right? He takes Goliath's head and takes it to Jerusalem, which is not in Israel's, like Israel doesn't have it at this time. It's like he's saying, I'm coming for you. Like, yeah.
A warning to everyone.
Yes. I'm not going to get into this, Jan God. It is because of a retelling of the story where there is without, like, in my opinion, it's pretty clear that there's actually an error in the Masoretic text. That's it, where something kind of sounds like a retelling of this story. We're not going to get into that textual stuff here. We'll get into it the second time around because some people think that this story was actually taken and given to David because there's another one. It doesn't matter. Yanni, don't throw us off track, all right? We're right now talking about someone getting their head cut off. It's a really, really great moment. I won't have you take it.
Yeah, let's focus on the gore, please.
Yeah, focus on the gore, please. You are forgiven. Going further though with this, the head cutting off, the panic, all this stuff. I want to make mention of this because it's one place where I disagree with what Yoav was saying. The reason why they don't use bronze is they're not allowed to. You'll remember in an earlier story, it says that only Saul and Jonathan have swords. No one else has swords. They weren't allowed blacksmiths. They had to go to a Philistine to sharpen their blades and everything. It's not just like, oh, we refuse to use these weapons because they've been used again. It's not it. So the first time David uses a sword is going to be Goliath's sword, and this will come back. David is going to be on the run later, and he uses the sword of Goliath. He uses the sword of Goliath when he's on the run from Saul. He uses the sword that he gets when he was in the service. Oh no. Oh no.
Alien.
Too many streams today. You're right, William.
Yes, there's a lot. That has been a huge sword though, right? If it was Goliath's.
Yeah, like how yeah, you just but he gets good at it. Yeah, there's no sword like it in all the world, I think, is a reference later on. And he takes his armor, and I don't know if is this a hint that David's going to become bad later? I don't know, or is it just like literally just booty? Because the stuff would be incredibly valuable.
Yeah, or maybe it's
That's good. That's a good joke. It's a good joke, William.
Or like you're saying, like he's taking the snake. Like you made a reference to something saying that maybe the clothes that Adam and Eve wear perhaps was the skin of the snake.
Right.
Maybe something like that's happening. I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess they like to keep stuff when they like killed cool people, right? Like you kind of keep things from it.
Yeah. Now, soon, I think next week, we're going to talk about the weirdest thing you could keep. Because there were traditions where people would come back from battle and have like a necklace of ears.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. They'd sometimes even like pickle them just to show them off as like a proof that I killed a man. And David refers, how does he refer to the Philistine? Are we going to let this guy with his penis hood still intact to make fun of us? Right? These uncircumcised Philistines. That's how he refers to Goliath. And David will be told that in order to get closer to Saul, to marry the princess, he's going to have to bring back a big bag full of the proof that he killed Philistines.
Right.
So just a big bag of schmucks. That's how he will pay for his bridal, for his bride. But you know what? Let's not get thrown off by such disgusting things. Let's finish this chapter.
Okay. As soon as Saul saw David go out against the Philistine, he said to Abner, the commander of the army, Abner, whose son is this youth? And Abner said, As your soul lives, O king, I do not know. And the king said, Inquire whose son the boy is. And as soon as David returned from the striking down of the Philistine, Abner took him and brought him before Saul with the head of the Philistine in his hand. And Saul said to him, Whose son are you, young man? And David answered, I am the son of your servant Jesse, the Bethlehemite.
Okay, what's the bit that I was going to bring up out of that?
Okay, about if he knows him or not, right?
Yeah, exactly. Does he know him?
We're still confused about the chronology of what's happening.
And if is it just that the king meets so many people that every time he meets him, he's like, what's your name again? Yeah, I'll remember it. Right? Like if you meet a famous guy, you remember his name. He doesn't remember your name though.
Right. And it's interesting in the story, they don't really call Goliath that much. He's always just the Philistine.
Yeah.
They only say it at the beginning.
Yeah.
Is that just because of what he's lower or something? Like unclean? They don't name him a lot?
That's an interesting idea. Because you have, if you go to synagogue for Purim, they will what's his name? Haman the Agagite. Whenever his name is mentioned, because the descendants of Amalek are supposed to be, you're supposed to forget about his existence, like you're supposed to forget him. They boo whenever his name is said. So it is interesting to what extent names even are used about the enemies. Because there's an idea of like, let's utterly forget.
He's not worth remembering his name.
Now Yanni is saying that Jesus cursing the fig tree is the hysterectomy of Jerusalem. What is a man supposed to do with this?
That's the hysterectomy. The chat always has the best conversations going.
Not always. Sometimes it has that. Does it always have good ones?
Well, I guess what? They branch off in directions that the mainstream never goes into.
Yeah.
They're hidden for a reason, I guess.
Yes. I do think that it's like the enemy is the enemy. It doesn't matter who they are individually. They're embodying kind of one spirit.
Right. I guess with the way that he proposed, they fight each other too. It's like he is all of them.
Yeah. That is a really good point, because again, we see David in multiple ways embodying the king. This is the third story of how he's king, and one of them is him embodying the entire people.
Right.
But not just the entirety of humanity. He's like of the people of Israel. He also embodies Adam within this story. He's going to battle with the serpent.
Right.
Yeah. So to what extent can we see David as an embodiment of the promise in Genesis 3 that a descendant of the woman will crush the head of a descendant of the snake? I think in both Saul and in David, in how they become king, that the author is playing with this idea. There it is.
Right. I guess would the judges be doing this too, right? In a way, like every time things go wrong in the garden or in Israel, another Messiah has to be raised up, so to speak.
That's right. That's right. And so that's one of the things I would say is that some of the people listening to this, I am making very, very Christian points. Obviously, I am a Christian. I'm not pretending that I'm not. However, I think that Jews have to bring this into their theology as well. The messianic figure is the one who comes and repairs the brokenness of the world, right? There's a bringing about of shalom, of peace, that is very, very important in what, in what a character who is representing God must do. And that's a crushing the head of what is evil and what is wicked.
You're right. And then, what are the other, I don't know, it does seem like you don't see as much of this story. I guess you just have you have like the hero's journey, and that's like the generic version of this.
Yeah. Ooh, I like this. We will address what you are saying. David is like Saul after he shed his unclean aspect, like a serpent shedding his skin. No? Yeah, and we described the armor as being snake-like, right? And not being in it. The depressing bit where it continues on, though, is that it also becomes the fall. David is not the ultimate fulfillment of this. Right. David, even though one of the Jewish messianic figures is called the son of David, it's not David, it's David's son who gets to build the temple. David is a bloody man. He's a man of blood. He can't build the temple. Right? Saul does things that are too much, and the kingdom is taken from him. These men will still fall.
Right.
And there's huge amounts of irony in that, where, again, Saul will be killed by an Agite, an Amalekite. He'll be killed by the group of people that he spared.
Right.
And a lot of the sins of Saul are going to be retraced in David's life as well. And the sins of other people, David will also, just like Eli and just like Saul, he will compromise because of his children. And those compromises that he makes because of his children will be something that destroys him. So right. He doesn't bring justice on why am I blanking on his name? It's Absalom. Not Aim. I'm starting to get a migraine, and I'm totally blanking on who rapes Tamar. Yeah. But I like what Don's saying. Someone has to fight, someone else repairs and rebuilds.
Yeah, it's a thing. It's a story told through time. So everyone has their part.
Amnon. Amnon. But there's also issues with Absalom. He won't hurt Absalom.
Right.
Yeah. But we can see the story that has already been told will be told again and again within this. But yeah, you're gonna get some good political intrigue and whatnot.
Yeah, there's a lot of it.
Yeah.
Huh. That's interesting about the kids being their stumbling block, I guess you could say. Maybe something being too indulgent towards them or something.
You see it all the time. There'll be people, and it's their children that will. It's who they are romantically in love with, and the children that they raise. It's like you love them too much, and so you're willing to compromise because your love is so great for them.
Right. Blinding.
Yeah. 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 And there's other stories. It's going to be very interesting too, because now that David has become a hero, Saul wasn't the hero in this story. David becomes the hero. And as a result of Saul not taking the challenge for himself, Saul's going to become jealous of David. And Saul is the reason why he sets him to such a high bridal price that requires killing so many of Saul's enemies. It's really to put David in harm's way.
Right. Yeah. Which then that's funny because then David does that later to Uriah.
That's right. But then he accidentally brings him closer to himself. Killing your kids is pretty base. Hey. Yeah.
I was going to say something and I forgot it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot what I was going to say.
Okay. All right. That's all right. I think this was a very good episode. I think we had a very good conversation. I hope people find value in it. This kind of stuff needs to be talked about more. For the people who are into the Pageauian kind of ideas, there is a lot of symbolism occurring in this stuff, and it makes a great story like an amazing, like a good story into a great story. Yeah. So, and now we shall part ways, and everyone shall go off and crush the serpents in their life. Except if Jan God actually kills someone by slinging a rock through their skull, I disavow. I disassociate.
Right. Only the Philistines, right?
Yes. Guys, on this channel, he is Yanni, okay? If it's
Yanni.
during Bible study, it is Yanni. He remains look, William, he was predestined before the foundations of the world to not be a Calvinist. Thanks, guys, for coming out. Thank you, Cassandra, for being here. We'll see you all next week.
All right.
Goodbye.